So, in this week, we've had an inter-weekly update in between the bi-weekly updates that we normally get with the Walmart Discovered Pass, yes, right over here, delivering us a collaboration before Arsenal x TDS. Very cool, except your profile is missing. Yeah, I already own the Walmart Discovered Pass, hence why I have the Discovered Farm, except it's kind of glitched. I mean, kind of glitched. It doesn't appear sometimes. Sometimes it does appear, sometimes it doesn't. It's very inconsistent. There is a bug with that, which I should probably report to the developers, except I think it's already on the bug report form anyways. However, that's not what I'm talking about. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the Hacker Tower. Because yes, the Hacker Tower is an upcoming tower next week, at least from what we know. So, as you can see here in the update log for v1.66.0, it does say Hacker Tower. Skill tree doesn't mention the Hacker Tower, it does indeed mention the Hacker Tower. I point this out very much because the Hacker Tower, when it was actually released, it said v1.66.0. Because the day before the update, Mentin noticed the fact that the Hacker Tower in the events in Roblox mentions v1.66.0 previously, but now mentions v1.67.0. Now we know, because of the Walmart update today, well yesterday actually, that the Hacker Tower is coming next week, and the event still says so, Wednesday, June 11th. So no, the developers have not delayed the Hacker Tower being released. It is still, officially at least, being released next week. However, what's interesting is that they still changed the days for which the Hacker Tower thing ends. So previously it says June 18th. Now it says June 25th. Now, in my mind, this could be because the developers have decided that this is going to be a Roblox event thing that shows up for 2 weeks rather than 1 week, which, I mean, makes more sense actually, given the fact that we are still on bi-weekly updates. The Walmart update, I think, was just a blip, and it's because it's a sponsorship. It's not going to be a regular thing, which is probably why it went over to the 25th, because the next update, 2 weeks after the June 11th update, would be June 25th. However, other than that, nothing has changed. It still says Meet the Hacker, a mid-range area of effect tower that bounces foes back to spawn, siphons resources to your economy, and instantly clones your strongest towers for unmatched DPS and utility. That hasn't changed. The thumbnail hasn't changed. We can assume that most of the things here that we've discussed previously are all the same, except we do have a new leak. Yes, because Star Wars, yesterday, actually posted a new leak about the Hacker Tower. At least I think it's the Hacker Tower. The red suit here and the red character here is very similar to the red character that's seen on this thumbnail for the Hacker Tower leak. The one using the Paradoxum Games iPhone Pro Max Plus Ultra Apple Pencil adaptable Thunderbolt USB-C micro USB LED ADHD inducing iPhone 24 Max. Plus it's also got the same hair, so it's pretty much the same character. And also, the emote used here, or the emoji used by Star Wars here, is called Hackermans. So yes, this is probably the Hacker Tower. So, from this video showing the red hacker off, it looks like the red hacker is attacking the Fallen Squire, as shown here. It's attacking the Fallen Squire because it has the aggro ability, but it looks like that the hacker, through the reds, ones and zeros, it hacks the Fallen Squire, but then it also hacks any of the enemies surrounding the Fallen Squire, meaning that they are hacked by the hacker seen here, and they head back to base. And in fact, they head back to base while damaging other enemies, and the Fallen Squire does die to the amount of enemies that it collides with, as seen here. And the same for the abnormal that is in front of the Fallen Squire, that is also hacked at the same time. In fact, I think there's another. No, there is not another abnormal, except, is there? It looks like there is in this footage here, but then the Fallen, that one dies. So it could be the case where the Fallen Squire has collided with this abnormal rather than the hacker instantly killing it. With that being said though, the hacker does seem to be able to target this Fallen Squire before moving on to this abnormal here, before they go back. So it looks like it could be health dependent on how long the hacker is able to go on for the Fallen Squire for. But that does raise the question of what happens if another tower kills the Fallen Squire before it heads back to spawn. And it looks like it gets a red... It doesn't look like it gets a red helmet. It doesn't look like it's a red helmet. But it looks like it gets red corruption around its head, showing that they are now hacked and they are free to go attack other enemies. I say attack other enemies, it just looks like they collide with them with no abilities in mind. So for example, if you were to hack the Fallen Honor Guard, for example, I don't think the Fallen Honor Guard is able to crush the other enemies. Now this does remind me a little bit like the Hypno Stream in Plants vs Zombies, the original one. If you remember that game, the Hypno Stream was able to, I guess, hypnotize another zombie, and that zombie would be able to defend against your, I guess, garden, and that zombie would be able to basically eat the brains out of another zombie, dealing damage to them. And it looks like it's the same case here. So the hacker tower is able to hack the fallen squire. The fallen squire is then hacked, and then it goes back to base to then go attack the other enemies as shown here. However, interestingly, it does look like when you hack these enemies, they do actually give out the cash that they are meant to give out. So the fallen squire is hacked, and then it gives out 17 cash and then 8 more cash, I guess, from the killed abnormal, but it doesn't look like there's 8 cash from this abnormal here. But it looks like it does that, and then it goes attack the other enemies, and they also give cash. So it doesn't look like there's a disadvantage by using the hacker tower in terms of your economy. With that being said, it does look like that this is the red version of the hacker. There's also a blue version of the hacker. Now, I have stated previously that it is likely that it's going to be like some swapping ability between the hackers, similar to how the DJ booth works. You can swap between the red track, the green track, and the purple track. Maybe for the hacker, you'll be able to swap between the blue track and the red tracks. And then, I don't know, maybe another green track to siphon resources into your eco, instantly clone your strongest towers for unmatched DPS and utility, and mid-range aerial effects tower that bounces your foes back to spawn. This is probably the mid-range aerial effect tower that bounces your foes back to spawn, which is probably why the abnormal seen in front of this fallen squire was able to bounce back to spawn. One thing to note is that it probably acts like a unit, such as the goons from the crook boss, this fallen squire here. So once it reaches the end, it probably just disappears instead of dying. The only reason why it dies here is because it probably dealt a load of damage to the enemies, hence why after it dies, a load of enemies can be seen streaming out of spawn. Now, this version of the hacker does seem kind of basic, I'm not going to lie. It doesn't look like it's that advanced. It only has like a basic outfit and is just the version seen in the leak previously. Here is this version has like a helmet of some sort, some eye goggles, some armor. This one doesn't. It only looks like it has gloves and that's it. So if this is like the basic version of the hacker, who knows what the next levels of the hacker will be. However, I do want to point out, there could be many mechanics of how this works. So for example, is it a time duration thing? Does that mean for enemies with higher health, it's going to take the same amount of time to hack them compared to lower health enemies? Does that mean that the hacker will be good against stronger enemies, therefore you should set it to strongest? Or more likely is the case, it's going to be dependent on the health. So the more the health an enemy has, the longer it takes for the hacker to hack them and they go back to spawn. Furthermore, I'll have to assume that enemies that are registered as a boss with the game, so that have the boss attributes, they will be unable to be hacked because that'll be like an instant win for the game. But then that does leave some other questions, like for example, is there going to be a limit of the amount of hacked enemies that you can do? Because what happens if you're able to hack all 3 nuclear guardians in Polluted Wastelands 2? Isn't that going to be a little bit OP? And I guess a way to counteract that is having the hacker tower take extremely long to deal with enemies that are very, very high health. However, obviously with bosses, it's just going to be assumed that they can't be hacked, but because the nuclear guardians that spawn on wave 30 in Polluted Wastelands 2, they don't have the immunity of being bosses, maybe they could be hacked and then they attack the nuclear monster. However, it does seem like for the hacker tower there is a slight delay because it attacks that speedy there before attacking like other stuff here before they're able to hack it, and they seem to do that very quickly. However, for the fallen squire, it looks like it does take a while. So it does look like it is health dependent. But then again, this is just a demonstration posted by Tyler. It may be the case where in the final version of the hacker tower, it may be slightly statistically different. So we can't assume statistics from this, we can only assume mechanics, and that mechanic is enemies being sent back to spawn, attacking enemies for you, which I think I've already mentioned, but I think is kind of OP. I mean, are there going to be limits on what enemy you can do this for? And will the enemies have their abilities? Like, for example, if I hack the Vindicator enemy in hardcore, could that throw its Thor hammer against enemies and instantly kill them? I don't think so. But then even then, right, if you hack the Vindicator, that's 50,000 health that can go straight into the Void Reaver, thereby saving you a lot of time. So I think, in any case, it looks like from this version of the hacker, it's going to be a placement limit of 1. Similar to the DJ booth, because if you have multiple hackers hacking enemies, it does seem a little bit OP. Of course, you can circumvent this by having everyone bring a hacker tower. So in quad mode, you can have 4 people hacking enemies straight away. You just need to set them to different targeting. However, in the case of solo mode, you can only bring 1, assuming it has a placement limit of 1. But yes, very unique ability, and I think the hacker tower is going to be a very, very uniquely mechanicked tower. And that is just the mid-range aerial effect tower. The siphon resources back to eco, I'd assume the hacker tower goes back to like green or whatever. That's like the green track, and then instantly clones your strongest towers for unmatched DPS and utility. Maybe that's the blue path, which is why we see a blue hacker here. But what about the drones? Yes, the drones are seen in the footage. Well, not the footage. It's seen on the thumbnail I've seen here. And the red hacker does seem to have a drone above it. but the upgrade itself, or at least the upgrade that's shown to us, doesn't have any drones. There could be a later upgrade, like a max level hacker that somehow, in my mind, attacks more enemies and allows the hacker to affect more than one enemy at the same time.